One moment, I was a promising pre-med student with a loving girlfriend and bright future ahead of me. The next, I was labeled a predator expelled from university and abandoned by almost everyone I knew. All because of a lie told by my girlfriend Amber's younger sister Zoe. A false accusation that cost me my education, my job, my reputation, and nearly my will to live. 9 months later, the truth finally came out, but by then the damage was irreversible. The same people who condemned me without evidence were suddenly sorry, but some wounds never truly heal. Before I share how one lie destroyed everything I had worked for, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and subscribe if you have ever had your reputation unfairly attacked. I was 22 years old and in my junior year of pre-med when my life imploded. The first in my family to attend college, I had won a full scholarship through a combination of academic excellence and countless hours of community service. My parents, both factory workers who never had the opportunity for higher education, could not have been prouder. I worked incredibly hard maintaining a 3.9 GPA, while juggling a campus job in the biology department to cover my living expenses. Medicine had been my dream since I was 10, when a kind doctor took extra time to explain my grandfather's heart condition to me in terms I could understand. I met Amber in organic chemistry during the fall semester. She sat next to me on the first day, and we bonded over our shared struggle with molecular structures. Amber was brilliant, driven, and genuinely kind, with long auburn hair and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. Like me, she was pursuing medicine, though she was leaning toward pediatrics while I was interested in cardiology. We began as study partners, spending long hours in the library, quizzing each other on complex formulas and reaction pathways. Our relationship evolved naturally from friendship to romance. By winter break, we were officially dating. And by spring, I knew I had found someone special. Amber challenged me intellectually, supported me emotionally, and made me laugh even during the most stressful finals weeks. We talked about our future, often daydreaming about medical school applications and eventually practicing medicine together. After 8 months together, I could not imagine my life without her. Amber came from a middle-class family in the suburbs. Her father, John, worked as a high school principal, and her mother, Maria, ran a small bakery. They welcomed me warmly from our first meeting, appreciating my academic drive and how I treated their daughter. John often invited me to watch football games with him, while Maria insisted on sending me home with containers of homemade food, worried that I was not eating properly in my dorm room. Then there was Zoe, Amber's younger sister. At 18, Zoe was a high school senior with a history of what her parents called difficult phases. While Amber was organized and focused, Zoe was chaotic and impulsive, where Amber earned straight, as Zoe barely maintained C's, despite being equally intelligent. The sisters looked similar, with the same auburn hair and green eyes, but their personalities could not have been more different. From the beginning, I sensed Zoe's resentment toward me, though I tried to be friendly. She would roll her eyes when I spoke at family dinners, deliberately contradict anything I said, and make subtle jabs about perfect Amber and her perfect boyfriend. Amber explained that Zoe had always struggled with living in her shadow and asked me to be patient with her. Over time, I witnessed concerning behaviors from Zoe. Once, while shopping with the family, I caught her slipping makeup into her purse at the mall. I quietly mentioned it to her, away from the others, suggesting she return the items. Instead of being embarrassed, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mind your own business unless you want problems." Another time, she claimed to have been accepted to a prestigious summer program, leading her parents to plan a celebration dinner, only for them to discover later that she had forged the acceptance letter. Despite these red flags, John and Maria tended to excuse Zoe's behavior. "She is just finding herself," Maria would say. "The baby of the family always needs more time to mature," John would add with a forced smile. Amber often expressed frustration at this dynamic, but remained protective of her sister, hoping she would eventually outgrow this phase. In late October, Amber's parents planned to attend a wedding several hours away, requiring an overnight stay. Amber would be home, but had a 12-hour hospital volunteer shift on Saturday. Since midterms were approaching, I arranged to stay at their house for the weekend to study with her parents' explicit permission. Zoe would be there as well, struggling with college application essays that were due the following week. That Saturday morning, Amber left for her shift at 6 a.m., kissing me goodbye, as I continued sleeping in the guest room where her parents had insisted I stay. Around 10, I went downstairs to find Zoe surrounded by crumpled papers at the kitchen table, visibly frustrated with her essays. "Need any help?" I offered, making myself a cup of coffee. Zoe initially refused, but after another hour of minimal progress, she reluctantly accepted. I spent the next 3 hours helping her brainstorm ideas and structure her personal statement. The session was tense but productive, with Zoe occasionally showing glimpses of appreciation amid her usual coldness. Our interaction ended when she received a text from friends and abruptly announced she was going out. I reminded her about her essay deadline, earning another eye roll as she left the house. I spent the rest of the day studying alone until Amber returned home, exhausted but smiling. We ordered pizza, watched a movie, and turned in early, me to the guest room, and Amber to her bedroom. Sunday passed uneventfully with more studying, and her parents returning that evening. Everything seemed completely normal. Then Monday morning came, and my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Amber, her voice trembling. "Ronald, what did you do to Zoe?" Amber's voice cracked as she asked the question that would destroy my life. My mind went blank with confusion. "What? Nothing. We worked on her essays while you were volunteering." "That is it. She says you assaulted her, Ronald." The words came out barely above a whisper. "While I was at the hospital. She told my parents last night after we went to bed." The room started spinning as I tried to process what I was hearing. "That is completely false, Amber. You know that is not possible. I would never. She is really upset. She is crying. She says she was too scared to say anything while you were still in the house." Amber's tone had changed, becoming more distant with each word. "Amber, please. You know me. You know I would never do something like that. Why would she say this?" I was fully awake now, panic rising in my chest. "I do not know what to believe right now," she replied. "My dad is calling the university and the police. I cannot talk to you anymore." The line went dead. Within hours, my carefully constructed life began to collapse. At 9:30 a.m., I received an email from the university's administration informing me of an interim suspension, pending investigation of a serious misconduct allegation. By 10, campus security was at my dorm room door, instructing me to gather essential belongings while my roommate watched in shocked silence. Officers escorted me across campus as students stared and whispered. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Someone had shared the accusation on a campus social media page. Within minutes, #MeToo hashtags appeared alongside my name and photo. Former friends and classmates I had known for years immediately posted messages of support for Zoe, a person most of them had never even met, while condemning me without question. By noon, my campus job supervisor called to inform me that my position was terminated effective immediately. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of behavior," she stated flatly, the same woman who had written me a glowing performance review just 2 weeks earlier. I tried calling Amber repeatedly, desperate to understand what was happening, but my calls went straight to voicemail. When I tried her parents' number, John answered only to say, "Do not contact our family again," before hanging up. By afternoon, text messages from mutual friends informed me that Amber was telling everyone she had escaped a relationship with a predator and was being celebrated for her bravery in standing by her sister. 2 detectives interviewed me the next day at the local police station. Their questioning felt more like an interrogation designed to trip me up rather than discover the truth. "Why would she make this up?" one detective asked repeatedly. "I do not know," I answered truthfully. "Zoe has always resented her sister. Maybe she wanted to hurt Amber by hurting me. All I know is that nothing inappropriate happened." "Victims do not lie about these things," the other detective stated, as if it were an indisputable fact. "I am telling you the truth," I insisted. "Check the timing. We were in a common area of the house. She left to meet friends shortly after. I have text messages with timestamps to Amber during that period." My evidence seemed to fall on deaf ears. The lack of physical evidence was dismissed as irrelevant. When I pointed out inconsistencies in the timeline Zoe had provided, I was told that trauma can affect memory. Every attempt to defend myself was twisted into further evidence of guilt. The university hearing a week later was equally biased. The panel consisted of 3 administrators who had already participated in campus events, supporting the Believe All Victims movement. I was not permitted to directly question Zoe, or present certain evidence that might traumatize the victim further. My attorney, whom my parents had scraped together savings to hire, was allowed to advise me but not speak during the proceedings. Zoe's testimony contained multiple contradictions. She initially claimed the incident occurred in her bedroom, then changed to the living room, when questioned about why she would have invited me into her private space. She could not accurately describe what I had been wearing that day. When asked about going out with friends afterward, she claimed she had been trying to escape the trauma rather than addressing why she had not immediately reported the alleged incident to anyone. None of these inconsistencies mattered. The panel deliberated for less than 30 minutes before returning with their decision: expulsion, effective immediately with a permanent notation on my academic record. My scholarship was revoked. 3 years of perfect grades and hard work, erased in an instant. My parents initially stood firmly behind me, but as the community pressure mounted, even they began showing subtle signs of doubt. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, my mother suggested gently one evening, her eyes full of confusion and pain. Perhaps you misread a signal. The implication that I might be lying broke something fundamental in our relationship. The final blow came when Amber and her family filed a restraining order against me, making it legally impossible for me to contact anyone who might help clear my name. Local news picked up the story, careful to use terms like alleged, but nonetheless featuring my university photo, alongside headlines about campus safety concerns. Social media became a weapon of mass destruction against my character. People I had never met shared posts about finally feeling safe on campus, now that I had been removed. Former friends publicly declared they had always sensed something off about me, rewriting our entire history to fit the new narrative. In less than 2 weeks, I went from a respected pre-med student with a promising future to a social pariah, unemployable, and unwelcome anywhere in the community I had called home for 3 years. Moving back to my parents' small house in rural Pennsylvania felt like a defeat unlike any I had ever known. My childhood bedroom, still decorated with high school achievements and medical school brochures, now seemed to mock me with reminders of dreams that had been shattered. I spent the first month barely leaving that room, sleeping during daylight hours, to avoid seeing the disappointment and uncertainty in my parents' eyes. My phone continued to be a source of torment. Though I had deleted all social media accounts, messages still found their way to me. Some were direct threats. People like you deserve to die. Others were from former classmates. I always knew there was something wrong with you. The most painful were from people in Amber's circle. She is traumatized because of what you did to her sister. I hope you rot. I created a ritual of deleting these messages each morning, trying not to read them, but inevitably absorbing their hatred. My parents suggested changing my phone number, but some irrational part of me kept hoping Amber might call with news that Zoe had recanted her story. My father, a stoic man who rarely showed emotion, suggested we move to another state. "We can start fresh somewhere else," he said one evening. "Your cousin in Arizona said his construction company is hiring." The fact that he was willing to uproot their entire life to escape the situation showed just how dire things had become. Finding employment locally proved impossible. Though no criminal charges had been filed due to lack of evidence, the mere allegation appeared on background checks. I applied for 27 positions in the first 2 months, from retail to food service to remote customer support. Each application met with either explicit rejection or more commonly silent dismissal. The only person from my previous life who remained loyal was Marcus, my friend since high school, who now attended a university in California. He called regularly, offering the only connection to normalcy I had left. "This is insane, Ron," he said during one late-night call. "Everyone is just accepting her word without any proof. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty, that only applies in actual courts." I replied bitterly. "In the court of public opinion, accusation equals guilt. End of story." This painful realization became my new reality. The accusation was effectively a life sentence, regardless of proof or legal outcome. Even if I was never charged or convicted, the stigma would follow me forever in the digital age where nothing is truly forgotten. My parents insisted I see a therapist, finding one in a town 30 miles away, to reduce the chance of community recognition of Dr. Winters specialized in trauma and helped me understand that I was experiencing symptoms similar to PTSD. The panic attacks, when my phone buzzed, the hypervigilance in public places, the nightmares where I was being chased by faceless accusers, all stemmed from the trauma of false accusation. "Your brain cannot distinguish between different types of life-threatening situations," she explained. "Being cast out from your social group and having your identity attacked triggers the same survival mechanisms as physical danger. These sessions became my lifeline, providing the only space where I could express my anger, fear, and profound sense of injustice without judgment. Dr. Winters helped me develop coping mechanisms, mindfulness techniques, to manage anxiety, structured routines to provide stability, and small goals to rebuild my sense of agency. 3 months after the accusation, I enrolled in online classes through a community college, using only my legal first name, James, which I had never previously used. The anonymity of virtual education provided safety, allowing me to continue some form of academic progress while remaining invisible. I also began meticulously documenting everything related to the false accusation, creating a detailed timeline with supporting evidence. Text messages showing my whereabouts, inconsistencies in Zoe's statements from the hearing transcripts my lawyer had obtained, character references from previous employers, the complete absence of any prior misconduct accusations in my history. Though I had no immediate use for this documentation, compiling it gave me a sense of control in a situation where I had been rendered powerless. With my parents' remaining savings and a loan from my uncle, we hired a more specialized attorney to fight the university's decision. Martha Kingsley specialized in Title IX cases and due process violations, and she did not mince words about our chances. Universities are terrified of appearing insensitive to assault allegations, she explained during our first consultation. They would rather expel 10 innocent students than risk keeping one guilty one. But we can build a case for procedural violations and discrimination in how your hearing was conducted. The legal process moved glacially slow, each motion and response taking weeks or months. Meanwhile, life continued its surreal new pattern. I found unexpected moments of kindness from strangers unaware of my situation, like the elderly librarian who helped me access research materials for my online courses, or the convenience store owner who offered me occasional shift work for cash when I ran out of money for gas. I discovered an online support group for people who had been falsely accused of various offenses. Their stories mirrored mine with disturbing similarity: immediate presumption of guilt, loss of reputation and livelihood, abandoned by loved ones, struggling to rebuild while carrying an invisible scarlet letter. These anonymous connections provided crucial validation that I was not alone. As a form of therapeutic distraction, I began developing a privacy-focused app that would allow users to document their interactions and establish time-stamped alibis. The project initially served as merely an escape, but gradually evolved into something potentially useful, giving me a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. The holidays were particularly painful. Thanksgiving featured awkward silences when relatives who had heard rumors avoided direct questions about my future. Christmas brought memories of the previous year spent with Amber's family, where John had proudly introduced me as our future doctor. New Year's Eve passed with me alone in my room while my parents attended their traditional neighborhood gathering, without me the uninvited reminder of scandal. 9 months of this isolated existence changed me fundamentally. The outgoing, optimistic student who had once led study groups and volunteered at hospital fundraisers was replaced by a cautious, hyper-aware individual who calculated risks in every interaction. I aged decades in less than a year, developing a permanent furrow between my eyebrows and finding my first gray hairs at 23. Yet somehow I survived each day, then each week, then each month. Not thriving, perhaps, not even living in any meaningful sense, but existing and occasionally finding small moments of peace. I had no idea that everything was about to change again with a single phone call. "Ron, you need to see this right now." Marcus's voice had an urgency I had not heard in months. It was a Friday evening in July, exactly 9 months after my life had imploded. "What is it?" I asked immediately, tensing for more bad news. Zoe posted a video. "It is going viral. She was drunk at some party, and just check your email. I sent you the link." With shaking hands, I opened my laptop and clicked on Marcus's email. The video showed a dimly lit bedroom crowded with teenagers holding red cups. Zoe sat cross-legged on a bed, visibly intoxicated, surrounded by several equally drunk friends. "Truth or dare?" someone off camera asked. "Truth," Zoe slurred, giggling. "What is the worst thing you have ever done to someone?" Zoe's expression shifted to a smirk as she leaned toward the camera. "I got my sister's boyfriend kicked out of college by saying he assaulted me." Her friends gasped, but she continued her words, slurring but clear enough. I cannot believe they actually believed me about Ronald. Amber deserved to lose him after stealing my spotlight all these years. Did he really not do anything? Someone asked. Nothing, Zoe laughed. He would not even write my stupid essay for me. Such a rule follower. But Amber was so perfect with her perfect boyfriend. And my parents were always like, "Why cannot you be more like your sister?" So I fixed it. I watched the 30-second clip loop 3 times, my entire body numb. The casual way she confessed to destroying my life as revenge against her sister left me breathless. The video had already accumulated over 50,000 views and was spreading rapidly across platforms. Within hours, my phone, which had been silent for months, exploded with notifications. Former classmates sending the video link with messages like, "Have you seen this?" Old friends writing lengthy apologies for abandoning me. Even professors reaching out expressing shock and regret. The most jarring message came from Amber. "I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. Can we talk?" I stared at her text for an hour, unable to formulate a response. The damage she and her family had participated in could not be undone with an apology. 9 months of my life had been stolen. My education derailed, my reputation shattered, my sense of security destroyed, all because they had chosen to believe a troubled teenager with a history of lies over someone they had claimed to know and love. The university administration moved with remarkable speed now that public opinion had shifted. A formal letter arrived via email the next morning, offering immediate reinstatement, a scholarship restoration, and a carefully worded non-apology, citing new information that has come to light. My social media accounts, which I had deactivated months ago, were flooded with friend requests and supportive messages when I briefly reactivated them to assess the situation. The same people who had publicly condemned me now wanted to celebrate my exoneration, as if I had been justly accused, and then cleared rather than wrongfully targeted from the beginning. Everyone is acting like this fixes everything, I told Marcus during a video call that night. Like I can just pick up where I left off and pretend the last 9 months never happened. They want to ease their own guilt, he replied. Making it right for you would mean acknowledging how wrong they were, and most people cannot handle that level of accountability. After 3 days of avoiding Amber's increasingly desperate messages, I finally agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop halfway between our towns. She looked different, thinner, and with dark circles under her eyes that makeup failed to conceal. She began crying the moment she saw me. "I am so sorry, Ronald," she said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back instinctively. I should have trusted you. I should have known Zoe was lying. "Why did not you?" I asked the question that had tormented me for months. "You knew me. You knew her history of manipulation. What made you believe I could do something so horrible?" Amber wiped her tears, visibly struggling. "Everything happened so fast." Zoe was hysterical. "My parents were convinced. There was all this pressure about believing victims and not questioning their stories. I got caught up in it all, and I failed you completely." As she continued explaining, I realized something fundamental. While I had lost everything based on a lie, Amber had gained social capital as the supportive sister of an assault victim. Her social media following had doubled. She had been featured in campus newspaper articles about supporting survivors. She had received praise and attention while I had received only condemnation. "The worst part," I said, interrupting her explanation, "is that I would have believed in you no matter what anyone said about you. That is what real love is supposed to be." I left her crying at that table, feeling nothing but a hollow certainty that some betrayals cannot be forgiven regardless of remorse. Zoe's parents forced her into therapy after the video surfaced, but their accountability stopped there. They never contacted me directly to apologize, instead issuing a brief statement through their attorney, expressing regret for the family situation that has affected multiple young lives. The carefully worded non-apology highlighted their continued reluctance to hold their daughter fully accountable for her actions. With Martha's guidance, I filed a lawsuit against the university for violating my due process rights and gender discrimination in their handling of the case. While the legal system moved slowly, the publicity surrounding Zoe's confession strengthened our position considerably. The university eventually offered a settlement that included financial compensation and agreement to reform their disciplinary procedures. Despite the vindication, I realized I could never return to my former university or home. The memory of betrayal permeated every building, every relationship. Instead, I applied to transfer my credits to a university in Colorado far from anyone who knew my story. I changed my focus from medicine to law, inspired by Martha's advocacy and newly aware of the critical importance of due process protections. In my new location, I found purpose in advocating for due process and false accusation awareness. I started a small blog documenting my experience and the procedural failures that had enabled the rush to judgment against me. The blog connected me with Kelly, a law student who reached out to interview me for a paper on Title IX reforms. Our professional relationship gradually evolved into something more personal, built on a foundation of intellectual respect and shared values. The irony was not lost on me that vindication came too late to undo most of the damage. My pre-med dreams were permanently derailed. Many relationships remained irreparably broken. I still struggled with trust issues and occasional panic attacks. Even with Zoe's confession online, searches of my name continued to bring up the initial accusation, alongside the later retraction, creating a permanent digital asterisk beside my identity. But I also discovered resilience I never knew I possessed. Each challenge I survived made navigating the next one slightly easier. The false accusation had taken much from me, but it had also stripped away illusions about fairness, justice, and the reliability of institutions and relationships. In their place grew a clearer understanding of what truly matters: integrity, critical thinking, and the courage to stand alone when necessary. 9 months of exile taught me that public opinion is as changeable as the weather, and equally meaningless as a measure of truth. The same crowd that condemned me without evidence later celebrated my exoneration, without acknowledging their role in my suffering. Their judgment in either direction now holds little weight in my assessment of my own worth. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after being wrongfully judged? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story made you think twice about rushing to judgment without evidence, please hit the like button and subscribe to help others find this channel. Consider sharing this video with someone who needs to understand the devastating impact of false accusations. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, in a world quick to condemn, the most radical act is reserving judgment until you know all the facts.